All right, so let's start today's session. So last class we discussed what? Comparison based. Last class we discussed comparison based algorithms, right? See, comparison based algorithm means you have some numbers, and by comparing two numbers you're trying to decide which one should come where. Okay, by comparing numbers. Okay, by comparing the whole number, I will say. Okay, the whole value, you're trying to decide which one should come where. Okay, now the next technique, these are all non-comparison based numbers. I mean, you'll not compare just the value. Okay, we'll go a little deeper. Okay, so the first algorithm that we'll see is counting sort. Okay, so let's understand what is counting sort. So this is actually similar to hashing. Okay, and what we do is in counting sort we want to upper bound the value that can be there in an array. Okay, so see, when I was talking about a quick sort or merge sort, if I have this array of n elements, okay, each element each element can be any value, okay. I mean, I was not restricting the value that the maximum value that can be there in the array. Okay, that means any element. So if I try and calculate the maximum of these, that max value, so that max value can be anything. The maximum value can be 1,000, maximum value can be 10,000, maximum value can be 1 lakh, or it can be 1 million, anything. Okay, I was not restricting the value itself. Okay, but in counting sort, what we do is we kind of try to restrict that. Okay, so what we'll say is we'll say that the array values are in some range, let's say from 0 to n. Okay, I'll try to restrict the range of these, let's say from 0 to n, and let's say n is what? N is the number of elements that are there as well. Okay, so n is two things. One is n is the maximum value that can be there in the array, and another thing, n is number of elements in the whole array. Okay, so if I talk about, let's say I want to say that n is equal to 9, so the range becomes, you can choose any, all the elements should be between 0 to 9. That's my idea. All right, so let's say if I have this as the element, now given this, how do you think should I sort this? How do you think should I sort this? Tell me, any idea, how do you think should I sort this? Naturally think, what should be the natural way? Anyone with any idea? Anyone with any idea? Yes or no? Okay, all right. So let's do one thing. Let's do one thing. See, I know that the values over here are between 0 to 9. Okay, 0 to 9. So what I can do is I can take up an array which have which has indexes 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up till 9. Let me take it here. I can take up array which has indexes what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Yeah. And now what I can do is the array that I had, let me just copy the array 6378712. 6378712, right? So if a 6 comes, then I'll initialize all the values in this array as 0, okay? And I will start scanning the input array. 6 comes, so I'll increment this to 1, okay? 3 comes, I'll increment this to 1. 7 comes, I'll increment this to 1. 8 comes, I'll increment this to 1. There was another 7. 7 at 7. 7, yeah. Again a 7 comes, I'll increment this to 2. 1 comes, I'll increment this to 1. And 2 comes, I'll increment this to 2. Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to do is, in one scan of the input, I'm trying to keep a count of all the values, okay? How many 7s are there? You go to the 7th index and it will tell you, okay, 2 7s are there. So basically, this array stores the number of count. Is this clear to all of you? It stores the number of 7s which are there, and this index represents the value in the input array. This represents the value in the input array, and the value inside the array is actually the count of the index. Is this clear to all of you? Yes or no? Yeah. So now what I'll do now, I'll just scan this array. Once I have created this array, I'll scan this array and I will write the values. So how many? So the sorted, see, ultimately you're doing sorting only, na? You're doing 1, 2, 3, no 4, no 5, 1, 6, 2 7s, 7 and 7, and then 8. This is the sorted answer. So the benefit here that I got was that this guy took actually order n time. Okay, this guy took order n time, right? So let's see the algorithm once again. Same thing will be repeated in the algorithm. So again, look, this is the array. Now you try and maintain two arrays. Okay, one is the value array. Okay, these are the indexes that you have. Okay, and now this is the count array. Count array is what? And indexes over here are the values. Okay, are the values, right? Indexes over here are the values. These values, whatever, because the point is, I know that there are n elements in this array, and I know another point. The other point is that the range or the maximum value that can be present at any of the elements is also n. Okay, maximum value that can be present in any of the element is what? N. So by using this small point, I can actually start counting the number of elements that I have for each of the indexes. Indexes are the values itself. Alright, so this will be the count array. And once you are done maintaining the count, next time is what? You check up the index, one index, that means 1 1. So you write 1. At index 2 you have value 1. This is count. So you'll write you write you write 2 ones, then you write 3 ones, then no 4, no 5, you write 6 ones, 2 sevens, and then 1 8, and you are basically done. So one time one scan of the input, you will take total n elements. One scan of the input you will take to write this count, and the other scan of the input of the count array you will take to write the sorted array. Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? All right. So can you tell me the time complexity for this algorithm? Everyone, can you tell me the time complexity for this algorithm? I feel like today the response is not that, I mean, you guys are not feeling enthusiastic. People, what happened? I have to force in the inputs from you. Don't feel like studying today? Give me some response, at least something you write on the chat. Otherwise, I'll make you guys start your video call. And then I will realize how you all, in which position you are studying. Are you just lying down, just almost about to sleep, and in that position are you studying and all? What happened? I don't know. I'm not able to get a proper response. This is counting sort is a very it's an easy algorithm. A lot easier than if I compare this with quicksort and partition algorithm and merge sort and merge algorithm. I feel like either you are tired or you don't feel like studying algorithms anymore. Have you lost the will to study for GATE? Sure, right? Can I get a good response for that? You still want to study, right? Still want to score good in GATE? Yeah, so let's be little enthusiastic. I know it's 9:30 at night. Yes, I know it's 9:30 at night, but yeah, we have to study because we work all the day. Now it's the study time for us, right? All right. So somebody saying order of n plus k. So Aditi, what is k in this? I did not mention k. What is k? Okay, so fine. It is the number of values. Fine. So let's, for simplicity, let's assume n is the number of values and n is the range as well. I mean, n is the maximum value that you can have in the maximum value an element can have in the whole array. Okay. So if you see, you are basically taking 2n time. First n is you try to scan your input and to try to create the count array. That is the first input. Okay. The second input is what? You try to scan your count array to write the sorted output. Okay. So this becomes what? This is actually an order n time complexity algorithm. I hope this point is clear to everyone. It is an order and time complexity algorithm. Okay. So time complexity, you can write it as n plus k also, where n is the number of elements and k is the range. K is not the range. You can say k is the maximum value an element can have. Because depending on this, depending on k, we will create our count array. Count array will be dependent on the maximum value of the array. Okay. And if you want to find the maximum, even if you don't have the maximum value and you want to find the maximum value, then it's again easy, right? Just do a single scan through the input, find the max, and initialize your count array. Simple as that. All right. But again, the problem is extra space we are taking. Extra space in terms of what? That count array. This count array is extra space, so it will come under auxiliary space. Okay, it will come under auxiliary space. Okay. So till now we discussed the algorithm where your range of values were from 0 to k. Okay. Now what if I have negative elements in the array? How to apply a counting sort in that manner? What modifications are required to apply counting sort in that case? Please think about it and tell me. Sanjeev, you're saying use lower indices for lower values. See, what I'm saying is, I am saying that when my range is between 0 to k, then my indices in the count array are between 0 to k, correct? Now I am saying my range is below 0. That means I have negative elements as well in the array. So now how will I be able to create the input array, count array? That's my point. But lower indices for lower values, I can basically the point is I cannot have a negative value index. That's the thing. Indexing starts on a system level from 0 only. Right. Okay. But then the problem is, this, you have to take another array. You have to take another array in which you have to say -8 will be for 0. You have to define this mapping in that particular array, correct? Apart from count array, right? Another way I can okay, anyone else who has any other way except this? Anyone? So you have taken -7, -8, -7 and -5. So guys, see, what we can do is I know the elements in the array. Okay, I can try and find the minimum element. Let's say I'll find minimum element is -8. Okay, let's say min is equal to -8. So what I'll do is, I will add 8 to every element of the array. Okay, so that will make this as 0, this will make as 1, and this will make as 3. Okay, and so on. So basically what I'll do is I'll try and convert all the values to positive. Okay, then write them in the sorted order and then subtract 8 from each of the value. So I will get my final answer. Is this clear? Okay, I'll get these values. I will calculate the minimum value. Once I calculate the minimum value, that much positive quantity I'll add to every element of the array. Once I add to every element of the array, then I'll apply the counting sort the elements, and then later on I will subtract that particular value from every element of the array. So this becomes -8, and this is -7, this is -5, and so on. So this will be the sorted array. Is this step clear to everyone? Sanjeev, the way you said is also can be done, but the thing is, I'll require some more extra space apart from counting array. In this method, I will only require that count array. I'll not require anything else. No, how positive values become negative? So you're saying, can you come on call audio and then ask your doubt? Okay, okay, fine. Suppose array had 1, okay. And min was -8, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Min is what? -8, fine. And 3. And let's say 10. So now you calculate -8, add 8 to everyone. Okay. So this will be what? This will become 9. This will be 10, 11, 12, 13. This will be 0. And this will be 18. No. Add. No, add. Subtract later. See. Okay. So you add 8 to all the elements, then sort them. You know how to sort them? Sort them using counting sort. Okay. Find maximum element and all. Do the same procedure. You get this 0, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 18. And now what you do is subtract 8. Whatever you added now, do that same thing with every element. So this becomes what? -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. Clear to everyone? Yeah? This little modification will help us deal with negative numbers as well. For counting sort, of course. Alright. So I hope things are clear to you. Yeah? Alright. So after counting sort, we have radix sort. Okay? Now, can you tell me the problem with counting sort? Anyone? Or the limitation of counting sort? Forget about the problem. Can you tell me the limitation of counting sort? Yes, this is one limitation, but another limitation is I am limiting the range of values that I can have. Range of values are being limited, yeah? So basically, I'm saying, please give me all the values between 0 to n, not more than that. That is actually another problem with counting sort. I am limiting the range of values, of course, and the second point is the auxiliary space. You're using count array as the auxiliary space. Again, this is a bad thing. Okay. So let's say now I have range between 0 to n square. Okay. 0 to n square. Then what will be the size of my counting array? Counting array size will be n square, right? Counting array size will be n square, and hence when I try and try and scan the counting array to write my final sorted output, when I try and scan the counting array, it will take me order of n square time. Yes? Is this clear to all of you? Yes or no? This will take me order of n square time. So basically I have to be really careful with the range if I'm using counting sort. Okay. So counting sort gives worst case order n square time complexity by this. If you change the range is from 0 to n square. Okay. So in this case, or if you increase to n cube and all, so it will start giving a lot worse. And of course, remember one more thing, this counting array space also increases. Previously it was 0 order of n, now it becomes order of n square. So the time and space here both actually depends on your counting array, and counting array internally depends on the range of values you have. Okay, so that will be a trouble for us. So what you do is you try to use radix sort. Okay, radix sort is a much better algorithm. All right, so let's see how to use radix sort. Okay, so before radix sort, yeah, I'll just explain you using an example. Let's say this is my initial array given to me and I have to sort this. Okay, this is the initial array and I have to sort this. So now what you'll do is you'll take the least. So if I have a number, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this part is the least significant digit and this part is called the MSB, most significant digit, right? This is the least significant digit, least significant bit or digit, anything you can say. Okay, now what you do is at the beginning of the array you consider the least significant digit and try to apply counting sort in that, or just try to arrange that in increasing order. So if you see, after my first iteration, this is the value. So 0 over here, 0, and then 2 and 2 and so on. Okay, now the next question is when you're arranging, if two zeros come, then whom to pick up first? The simple thing is whichever zero is coming early, that should be picked first. That's why I wrote 170 before 90. Is this clear? This step is clear what I did with the LSB, the least significant bit? Okay, just a moment. Okay, so this was the sorting based on the least significant bit. Now what you'll do is you'll take the next bit. Okay, you started with this bit, there are three more bits, so you'll take the next bit and again sort it. Okay, again try to sort it. So now I have underlined the second bit starting from right, second bit starting from right. All right, so now you sort according to this. So basically this will say 802 will come. Then now see, now the problem is if I have only a single digit number. Okay, if I have a single digit number, then I'll add zeros on the left, it won't be a problem. So for 2 I made it 02 to handle uh, this 2 for case of sorting when you're taking digit from second digit from left. So you make it 02 and you take 0 and then so 802 and 02 comes first, and then is 24, I think. Yeah, 24. Yeah, 24, and then 45, 45, then 66. Then see, for 7 you have two competitors. So whichever is coming first in the list, that will be put first. So after 6x you put 170 and then 75 and lastly 90. All right. So this was for the sorting based on the second bit from the right. Now, if you see, the maximum number in this list is what? A 3-digit number. So basically what I want to say is you have to apply radix sort 3 times only. 3 iterations will happen. So in the third iteration, you take the MSB, that is 8. Okay. So now when you take the MSB, of course 24 has only 2 digits. So you add a 0 here and that becomes the MSB now. So again, first you put the 0. So 002 comes first, then 024 comes first, then 045, same sequence is followed, and 075090, then 170, and lastly 802. Okay. So when you reach to the final answer, over here, when you reach to the final answer, you see that this array sequence is now sorted. Okay, this array sequence now is sorted. Is the algorithm clear to everyone? All right, now tell me one place where this algorithm will actually fail, or a type of input where this algorithm will fail. Anyone? See, okay, so I'll give you a hint. This algorithm depends on the number of digits of the maximum element. Depends on number of digits of the maximum element. When this algorithm will take much more time compared to others. Exactly. So Aditi, not only when digit is large, see something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you have then this, right? So now the problem will be, since only one number is large and it is so large compared to the others, that radix sort will take order of n square time. We'll discuss the time in a moment, okay? Because for sorting every digit, okay, you can use counting sort, and that can be done in order of n time, yeah? So basically you'll use 6 elements are there and 7 digits are there. So basically you use n times radix sort, and every time it takes order of n time complexity. So roughly this would be what? Order of n square. Okay. So you have to make sure that your range of the value is decent. It should not be really bad. Otherwise, radix sort will not be able to give you the right answer. I mean, it will give you the right answer, but it'll take a lot more time as compared to maybe quick sort or merge sort. Right? So this point should be clear to everyone. So these are simple algorithms. They are not really hard. Only thing you have to understand is how they are functioning. Okay. Okay. So next thing is, let's try and see the running time of radix sort. Okay. So here I am assuming that there are d digits in my input value at max. At max. That means the maximum element in my array has d digits. Okay. Then the time complexity is what? D into n. N is what? This complexity, n plus b, came from counting sort. Okay. B is the base in which number is represented. So for simplicity, you can just write this as d into order of d into n. Okay. Where n is what? N is the number of elements, because you are applying counting sort d times. Number of digit times you are applying counting sort. So this will be the time complexity. Everyone understood this? Yes or no? Forget about B. All right. So if k is the maximum possible value in the input array, then d is equal to this. Okay. Of course, you can find the digits, na? So whatever, let's say I have this. Let me say I have 1000. Okay. If I want to find the how many digits are there, I'll just take this and take a log. Base 10. This 3 will come here. Log 10 is 1. Okay. So base I've taken as 1. So basically it will give me 3 digits, right? 3 plus 1, roughly. Okay. So this, by this we can actually, if we know the base and all, and we know the maximum value, we can calculate the number of digits which are there in that particular value. And hence we can write the value of D also. Okay. So this is what I have done. All right. Now comes in the thing that, see, if I have these kind of digits, so can you compare this and tell me whether this is equivalent to order n log n? Let's say there are n digits, and n is a very large value. Can you say that this is comparable to n log n? Because n log n was what? Quicksort's, randomized quicksort's time complexity almost, or you can say merge sort. Chalo, let's say merge sort time complexity. Yeah. Then also people prefer quicksort over radix sort. Why? You have to tell me the reason why. Why should I prefer quicksort over merge sort? Over radix sort? Since we already know that radix sort also gives me order n log n time complexity in worst case. It can give you. Of course it can give you. Yeah. Sanjeev, let's say we have fixed length numbers, fine. Radix sort is useful. Can't we do the same thing with merge sort as well? Yes, that's the thing. See, for radix sort, when I'm trying to do the counting for each digit, when I'm trying to sort it, okay, at every iteration, I said for each digit, I'll use the counting sort. Now, if you remember in counting sort, I taught you that I need a single extra array, right? Which is of the count array. So for every iteration, I have to take up some memory and initialize the count array in that, okay? And now if my n size is large that we saw, then a count array can become very huge. Yeah. No, actually n will be 0 to n. Yeah. So count size will not be that huge, but yeah, of course, the size of the input array itself can be huge, and this is one reason why radix sort is not preferred over quicksort, because quicksort is an in-place algorithm. It will not utilize any extra array space apart from the input array. Is this point clear to everyone? Yeah. This is one reason why we don't use radix sort. Okay. So the other reason is radix sort is actually a little more by a constant factor. Okay. Constant factor hidden in asymptotic notation are higher in case of radix sort, because in radix sort, see, you're doing the same thing at every iteration, you're trying to do counting sort as well. Counting sort will have its own constants to consider, right? Like once you scan the input array, again then you scan the count array also, right? So that things also comes with radix sort. This is another reason why radix sort is not preferred over quick sort. Okay. And another reason is quick sort uses cache more effectively. Okay. Quick sort is able to use cache more effectively because everything you are doing in the input array. You're not recreating, like in counting sort. What will happen is you'll create the memory. After one iteration is done, you'll destroy the memory. Again, you create the memory. Again, you destroy the memory. So every time you're trying to create some memory, if the memory is not there, so what will happen is the you know inside your cache, if the memory, if that space is not there, then the system has to wipe up or remove some pages and then bring in some more, try to create some memory in the cache itself, so that counting sort can use, and it can be allocated to counting sort. Okay, that is another reason why we use quick sort compared to radix sort. And the third reason is it uses counting as a subroutine and hence take extra space. This I have already discussed. So are these 3 points clear to everyone? Because when you study this in depth, you will someday, want to know why do we use radix sort? Why don't we use radix sort? I mean, quick sort is really famous. Questions are there in GATE with respect to the partition algorithm and all. But why don't we do it with radix sort? Okay, so these are the reasons. Okay, practically radix sort is not convenient. More convenient is quick sort. People, is this clear? Yes or no? Quickly tell me. All right. I think last. Okay. Last we have bucket sort. Okay. So bucket sort is really simple. What you simply do is you try to create n buckets. Okay. You try to create n buckets, and for every element in the input array, you insert it into one of the buckets. Okay. Randomly you insert that element into one of the buckets, and last is you try to individually sort the buckets. Try to individually sort the buckets. Yeah, maybe using insertion sort or anything. Okay, actually this is not very useful algorithm. Okay, but still, just as since this is part of a syllabus, I'll just go through this very quickly. Okay, take random values, put them in the bucket, and then sort the bucket out. Now one thing that everyone, please tell me one thing that I should be careful while putting values in the bucket. What is that? Bucket size also. Yeah, bucket size is one case. And can I say I should put the values uniformly? I mean, it should not be like one bucket is too much filled and the others are empty. Yeah. So whatever algorithm we use, okay, maybe I am just putting the values randomly, or maybe I'm putting the values using, you remember hashing, right? Maybe some hash function I can use to put the bucket values in the bucket. So what I want is the values should go into the buckets uniformly. Okay, uniform distribution should be there. That is the only important point. Otherwise what will happen now? Otherwise your number of buckets will be equal to the number of size itself. So basically, if the buckets are equal to your size of array, then you are doing nothing but applying insertion sort on the array itself, not on the buckets. Okay, so we have to make sure we have least amount of buckets and we have good distribution in them. Okay, so now fourth is concatenate all the buckets, so you'll get the sorted thing. Okay, if elements are uniformly distributed, then it takes order of n time, right? If elements are uniformly distributed, that is the only condition. So any doubts to anyone in bucket sort, or any doubts to anyone in sorting itself, whatever I have discussed till now? Yeah. So I've tried and spent not much amount of time on bucket sort. This is just a formality I've done. All right. So now what we'll do is, in the rest of the class today and little bit of class the next class, we'll solve some gate problems which have come on divide and conquer, and of course on recurrence relation and time complexity. Okay. So people who have not studied these two things, just try the question as far as you can and as much as you can, and at least try to understand the explanation. All right. So let's solve some problems now. So this is your first problem of the day. This came in GATE 2014, set 1 for 1 mark. Do it. And when you complete, just write the answer in the chat. Since there are not many students, just write the answer in the chat. So Anush, it may take some little bit of extra time, maybe because your internet bandwidth is less. It may take some time. Okay. So maybe 10-15 seconds. Anush and Kajol, are you done? Anush and Kajol. Kajol done? Okay. So see, in this question, what they're saying is P, let P be a quicksort program to sort numbers in ascending order using the first element as pivot. Okay, let T be the number of comparisons for these two inputs. So which of the following hold? Okay, so I have two arrays. The first array is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The second array is what? 4, 1, 5, 3, 2. 4, 1, 5, 3 and 2. Now they are saying you pick up first element as the pivot element. So what you do is, again, see, I told you the quicksort algorithm, when you take pivot element as the last element, right? So what you do is, when you have to select pivot element as the first one, na, always do one thing, take up this element and swap it with the last element. So what you'll do is, you'll swap this and this. And now run your algorithm. So now when you run your algorithm, later you will see that you got this as the one partition algorithm. When you run, you got this as the final output. I think this will not increment. 2, 3, 4 and 5. Are you getting this as the final output? After running partition algorithm once, everyone, or should I run it once for all of you? Please tell me. Yeah, after first iteration of partition algorithm. Only Sanjeev got this. Rest everyone, what about you all? Okay, so we got this. All right, so we got this. So what is happening? What has happened after one iteration is this thing will apply the partition algorithm later on this one. Okay, so again, what you'll do is you'll just do swap this and this. So this becomes 5 and 2, and then again you will see you will get 2, 3, 4 and 5. So what I'm trying to say is this case is the worst case. Okay, this case is the worst case. So in this, always the array will be divided into this guy. And if you remember here, the swaps will be less, but comparison will be done by everyone na, because see, quicksort doesn't know whether the array is sorted or not. He will not do swaps are optimized. I understand that, but the comparisons are not. So basically, this last pivot element will be compared by each and every one. Okay, each and every one, and that is where your number of comparisons increase. All right, let's take up this 4, 1, 5, 3, 2. 4, 1, 5, 3, 2. So you start with 4, okay? You swap this and this, so 4 is here, 2 is here. Now when you try to run, I'll just run the partition algorithm once. I is equal to -1, j starts from 0. You compare this and this. If pivot element is greater, then you increment I and swap, okay? I is incremented, 2 and 2 will be swapped. J is incremented to 1, okay? J comes here. Pivot element greater, yes. So increment I becomes 1, 1 and 1 is swapped. Then increment j becomes here. So 5 and 4. So 5 is greater than 4, right? Pivot element is less, so don't do nothing, just increment j. Now 3 and 4. So pivot element is greater, now you increment I and swap. So these two are swapped. 3 and 5 is happening, okay? And lastly, 4 and I plus 1. So that means this guy and 4 will be swapped. So what will happen is 2, 1, 3, then you have the 4 element and then 5 is there. Okay. So this is the element. This element is at its correct position now. So what you will do after this is this divide the elements into two halves. One is this and the second one is this. Okay. This division is much better as compared to what we saw previously, because previously always one part of the array was having 0 elements and rest of the elements were there in the other part. Here it is at least able to divide some bit of it. Okay. So now if you see, After this algorithm, you will be able to understand that comparisons, number of comparisons in this case, let's say if there are T2 and previous case if they were T1, so you can say that of course number of comparisons in case of T1 is greater than number of comparisons in case of T2. So option C is correct. Okay. So I just gave you a dry run of the partition algorithm just to tell you. Although this question could have been done in 30 seconds, since you know that in the ascending, if this array is sorted in ascending order, we will have maximum number of comparisons, and because we will not be able to divide the array into two parts or two equivalent parts. Always we'll divide the array, uh, you know. Uh, I mean, the other part of the array will have zero elements, and all the elements will go to the first part only or the second part only, right? So this is why you can say number of comparison in case of 1 are greater than number of comparisons in case of 2. So option C is correct. Anyone having any doubts in this? All right. Let's see the next problem now. This also came in GATE 2014. Try this. You have to find the minimum number of comparisons required to find the minimum and maximum of 100 elements. Anyone who was able to get any of the answers, please type in whatever you got. One 98 is not the right answer. Anyone who got the answer for this? Anyone? This is a good question. Came for 2 marks. Yes, 148 is the right answer. Anyone else who also got solution for this? Aditi, do you want to discuss your method? Sanjeev, what did you think? 198, tell me. Binary tree structure at each age. I'll check. At each stage, I'll check one of the two values to be larger or smaller. Totally n minus 1 comparisons for each. Okay. Yeah, see, binary tree structure is right. What you can do is, again, you can do the divide and conquer approach, right? That will give you the binary tree structure. But why do you want to check at each stage? Don't check at each stage, na. See, do it something like merge sort. So merge sort, what it does is, it just randomly picks up the middle element and keeps on dividing the array so that later on in the end, every leaf node has one element. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So Sanjeev, what I'm saying is, okay, so I think Aditi, let me just tell you the solution that I thought of. Okay, so let me say this is the array. Okay, you divide this array into two parts. You'll have 50 elements each. Yeah. Again, you divide. You have 25, 25, 25, 25. Now you keep dividing until you get one element each. Yeah. All right. Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? All right. Aditi, I'll see your method in a moment. Let me just try to explain this one. Okay. Now, see, I have two elements over here at each of the leaf node. Okay. Two leaf nodes belonging to one particular internal node. So, what I'll do is I will just. So, how many of these pairs will I have? How many of these pairs will I have? Can you tell me? 50, right? I'll have total 50 pairs. So let me take one pair out of these 50, okay? I'll just take one pair and I'll say max 1, okay, and min 1, okay? I'll just do a single comparison. This whichever number is greater will go to the max. Let's say A and B. If A is greater, then A will go to max and B will go to min, right? So in one comparison, can I write max 1 and min 1? Clear to all of you? Similarly, max 2 and min 2 I'll get in one comparison. Similarly, max 3, min 3. So basically what I want to say is I will get 50 maximum elements, okay? Max elements I'll get 50 and min elements I'll get 50. All right. So now I want to make one point. First of all, how many comparisons I did till this point? I did 50 comparisons. Okay. Now I want to say one point. The minimum element out of those 100 will lie in these 50, will be one of these 50 elements, and the maximum element will be what? Will be one of these elements? Yes or no? Yes. So now what I'll do is I'll again I'll apply the same technique on both of them, maximum also, minimum also. So let me do it here. So 50 elements are there. Okay. I divide this into 25 and 25. All right. Just a moment. All right. So now what I have to do is I have these 50 max elements. Okay. Next, what I'll do is let me divide this into 25 and 25. Yeah. And again into 13 and 12 and so on. So basically I will again have how many comparisons between these max elements? I'll have one each now. The same way I did it for the previous guys. So how many pairs will I make? Again I'll make 25 pairs. Is this clear to everyone? Yes. So out of those 25 pairs, I just compare once, right? And I will have another array in which I'll store those maximum elements, right? Those 25 elements will be here. Okay. So how many comparisons more I did for maximum? For maximum I did 25 more. Similarly for minimum I'll do 25 more. Correct? Now these 25 elements are there, and out of these 25 elements, one person is maximum. Okay. I'll again do comparisons. Let me split it what? See, I'll split it 20. Let's say when I finally split, I will get 12 pairs and one element extra. So these 12 pairs have to be compared, right? These 12 pairs have to be compared. How many more comparisons? 12 plus 12. Minimum also I'm doing the same thing. Okay? 12 plus 12. Now out of these 12 pairs I'll get 12 plus 1 extra, right? Which was there. I did not compare this with anyone. Okay? 12 plus 1. 13 elements now. So out of 13 I'll get 6 pairs and 1. So 6 pairs comparisons is how much? 6 plus 6 for minimum, and then I will have 6 plus 1 7 elements. So out of 7 I'll take 3 pairs plus 1. So I'll have 3 plus 3 Okay, then finally I'll have 2 plus 2 and 1 plus 1. Is this complicated? I think so, yes. Basically, I've just explained you that how you can solve this recursively. Yeah, see, basically you're doing the same thing over and over again. Once you divide your elements into 50, see, once you divide your elements into 50 maximum elements and 50 minimum elements, you have to follow the same procedure. Same procedure again and again. Okay? So if I try and summarize this, see, something like this is happening. 50, 25 and 25. Or I will say 2 pairs of 25. 2 pairs of 25. How many comparisons? 25 comparisons. Then how many people will be left? Because after comparison, one will be greater, one will be smaller. And maximum element, the quality of maximum element is what? It will be not smaller with anyone. Okay. Similarly, the quality of minimum element is what? It will not be less than, it will not be greater than anyone. So I know, okay, I'll have 25 elements more. So out of 25 elements, I'll get 12 pairs plus a single element. Okay. So these 12 pairs will take 12 comparisons. I'll not compare this one element. I'll just carry forward it. Okay. So I'll have 12 plus 1, 13 elements remaining after these many comparisons. So 13, I'll split 6 pairs plus 1. So for 6 pairs, I'll make 6 comparisons. And for the 1, I'll just keep it. So 6 plus 1, 7 will be remaining. So for 7, I will say, okay, let's make 3 pairs and keep 1 as it is. So for 3 pairs, I will have 3 comparisons. And then out of these, I'll get 3 maximum elements. So 3 plus this 1. So now 4 people will remain. 4, I can make 2 pairs for 4. Okay. And 2 comparisons. And after 2 pairs, I'll only remain with 2 elements. So last 2 elements, I'll just need one comparison to find which one is maximum. Okay. And the same story goes on for minimum as well. Is this clear to everyone? I just explained it again in a shorter way. Yeah. It's actually recursive. Only thing is, once you realize how you're doing the divide and conquer approach, it becomes really easy. Now let me see what was Aditi's method. Smallest element will take n minus 1 comparisons. So it will be 99. Okay. Then after one pass, there will be 50 elements on the left. For max, there will be n by 2 minus 1, that is 49. Now, Aditi, I don't understand this statement, what you're saying. And then after one pass, there will be 50 elements left, and for maximum, there will be n by 2 minus 1 elements. That is 49. I don't understand this. After one pass of what? The point is, after one pass of what? See, to calculate the smallest element, just take a variable, take the first value, consider that value as the minimum, and just compare with the rest 99 values, and you'll be done. Yeah, you got the minimum element. Now, I have not done any work to rearrange the elements. I have not done any work to rearrange the elements. After one iteration, fine, you divide it into 2 parts. Okay. So how are you sure that your maximum element will lie in one of the parts? That's what I'm asking. See, the algorithm that you're saying, just a moment. The algorithm that you're saying calculate the maximum value. After that, divide it into 2 parts. Yeah, divide it into 2 parts. Now let's say this guy was the minimum, and let's say this guy was the maximum. Okay, so it can happen. So what I'm saying is, it is not necessary that minimum and maximum will lie in different parts of the array. Okay, it may lie in the same part, it may not lie in the same part. That is why your algorithm may not give us the right answer. It's actually strange that you got the exact answer 148. Okay, that's the right one, but this is the right method to do it. Okay, you recursively try to solve this method, this is the answer. You recursively try to solve this, and then only you will be able to understand, okay, this is the surety that I will get maximum and minimum element in 148. So if you add this, this becomes 100, this is 24, and this is 12, and this is 6 plus 4 is 10 plus 12. So this becomes 148, right? So I hope this method was clear to everyone. This was a very good question. Came for 2 marks in 2014. Set 1. Okay, came for 2 marks. A very good question. So I have to think little bit. Okay. So always make sure whenever I give you any comparison based problem, try to think in terms of divide and conquer. Okay. And always either the question. So the number of questions that I've seen till now, today also when I was trying out all these questions for you guys. I've always seen they try to give you either question on number of comparisons or question on number of swaps. That is how they like to play in algorithms. Okay. Because time complexity for an algorithm will remain same. Okay. If they are giving a 2 mark question, they'll tell you to find exact number of swaps or exact number of comparisons. Make sure you do this for every algorithm that we study. Okay. If you have any more doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, you move to this question. Just a moment. Yeah. Try this question now. Anyone who completed this, or you need more time to solve? All right, try it. Sanjeev, just try it again. I think 358 is not right. Try it once more. You guys are getting 358. All right, so I think I have to see this a bit. So let's see this problem. Okay, don't worry. Everyone done? Uh, Anush and Kajol, can we discuss this? Okay, so let's see this problem now. So in this problem, what they are saying is, these are 5 sorted sequences having length these, okay? They are to be merged into a single sequence by, I mean, they are to merge into a single array, okay? How many number of comparisons will be required in the worst case by the optimal algorithm, okay? In the worst case by the optimal algorithm, how many comparisons are required, all right? Okay. So what kind of optimal algorithm have you used? I'll just copy 20, 24, 30, 35, 50. 20, 24, 30, 35, 50. I hope this 30, 35, 50. Yeah. You have to find number of comparisons by the optimal algorithm. Yeah, tell me. Anyone? So can I use the merge algorithm itself? Yeah, because if I try and apply binary search now, if I modify and apply binary searching technique in merge algorithm, my time complexity will increase. Yeah. Okay. So basically what you'll do is you combine this, and how many comparisons you'll get? Yeah, at least 10 minus, because you have to see everyone, na? 43 comparisons, okay? And you got a 44 sized array because they are saying you combine two at a time, okay? You can't just combine everyone. Now, now the next thing is, now next to arrays, see this array is still like this is the newly created subsequence. So this is still in the list, right? We don't have the combined sequence of 5 arrays, right? This is still in the list. So what I'll take next, 30 and 35. Have you done Hoffman encoding? Although I have not taught you, this is kind of Hoffman encoding. Okay, and I'll tell you the reason. Yeah, yeah, 44. See, I'll tell you the reason behind it. It's actually very logical. First, I got 43. Now the thing is, I have a size 44, I have a size 35, and I have a size 30 and 50. So out of these now, if I take 44 and 50 first, I will have a very big sized array. Okay, and then I would have to take these and compare with this big sized array. So what I want is, if I want to decrease the number of comparisons now, I have to try and keep my array as small as possible. This is why out of the remaining arrays, I'll always try to take the arrays, two of the arrays which has least possible number of elements, so that I can get least possible number of comparisons. All right. So this, then I'll take 30 and 35. I get an array of 65 elements and my comparisons are 64. All right. After this, I'll have 44, 65 and 50. So 44 plus 50 you'll add and you'll get what? 94, right? Because these are the two. So 93 is added and this will give you what? 94, and then 94 plus 65 you will add and finally you get your answer. So 94 plus 65 will be 159. So 158 elements are there. All right. Now let's add. So this will be 1110, sorry, 107 and 90. Yeah, 358 is the right answer. Yeah. I thought the answer is somewhere. This will be 200 and plus 158 will give you 358. I remembered, I don't know how, I remembered 378 as the answer, but that's not. Okay, 358 is the answer. Is this clear to everyone? Yes? So this small thing, actually they included little part of Hoffman encoding also. Hoffman encoding is a part of greedy technique that I'll teach you later, okay? When we see greedy algorithms, then we'll see Hoffman encoding formally. All right, so Aditi and Harshita, is this clear to you as well? Okay, so let's see the next question now. Try this. Try this one. Are you sure, Sanjeev? Irrespective of it, I'm always choosing the central element, remember. Okay, so Sanjeev, I'll. Okay, so everyone has got A as the answer. So you are saying that since if I choose middle as well, I might get n log n. No, see, they are saying you choose middle element as pivot. Okay, so something like this. See, an array like this. Okay, when you choose middle, then also you're getting the least. So basically, picking up element from anywhere is fine, but if you pick up an element which is always the minimum among all those, or which is always the maximum, then you will still get the worst case time complexity that we have in quicksort, right? Yeah, right. So it really doesn't matter. Picking pivot element, you have to just, there is no way actually for quicksort to, you can, if you can say in worst case that I will never pick up either the smallest element or the largest element. Okay, randomized quicksort also has less probability, but it still has probability that you may pick up, every time you may pick up the smallest element or the largest element, hence screwing up the whole process of partitioning and not properly dividing the array. Okay, so it doesn't matter what happens, A is the right option. Clear to everyone? This question was only given to you thinking that okay, you can say central element. So if it is central element, then maybe it will divide the array into two parts. That is why many people will mark either B or C as the option. But still A will be the option. You can always choose some array where the central element always is the next minimum or next maximum. Anusha and Kajol, clear? All right. So let's see this question now. Okay, first of all, have I done this question in class before? Okay, I think Sanjeev, only you were there, right? When we did this question in class, maybe. Anyone else also did this question before? Okay, you all then. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Sanjeev, just wait for everyone. If you know the answer, don't give it, right? We have done the explanation as well. Okay. Rest everyone, please try this question. This is also a very good question. I think came in. 2015 or something. Yeah, 2015. And again, this question came in 2016 as well. Okay, just try this question once. Good question. Anyone who completed this? Sanjeev, you also try, and I'll ask you the answer later. Anyone? Harshita, Anush, and Kajol. Okay, fine. Okay, one more thing. Is anyone missing from yesterday's class? Like who was present in yesterday's class but is absent today? Anyone? Okay. All right, fine. See, so this question says AN represents the number of strings of length n containing two consecutive ones. What is the recurrence relation? So let us see with an example. Okay. So A1 is number of strings of length 1 containing two consecutive ones. If I have a length, if I have a string of length 1, can I contain two ones? No. A1 is 0. A2 is what? 1, and the string would be 1 1. Okay. Similarly, A3 is what? So for three length strings, how many will have 1 1? Okay. So one will be 1 1 0, 0 1 1, and 1 1 1. Correct? These three. For 4, what you'll do is, let's calculate for 4 as well. Okay. This will be 1 1, 0 0 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 and then 0 1 1 0 and then 0 0 1 1 and finally you have 0 0 1 1 and what all is okay 0 0 1 1 is also done. Then 0 triple 1 is done. No, 0 triple 1 and what all are left? 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 1. Okay, 1 0 1 1 is also okay. So these all four I took first two as 1 1, so second and third as 1 1 and then last two as 1 1. Okay, I hope I'm not repeating anything. Yeah, that's it. So I have how many? I have 8. All right. So this I can do quickly. I can do this manually. Now what you do is you try to check options from here. Okay. This is the method. This is the method that you will use to solve this question if this question comes in exam. Okay. That's a much faster way. So now an is equal to what? An minus 1 plus an minus 2 plus 2 power n minus 2. If you try and compare this, you get option A as the right answer. Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? First, I'll tell you the shortcut of how to solve this. Yeah? Anush and Kajol, clear to you as well? Alright, alright. Okay, now this is the shortcut. Okay, so you substitute the value and you will get that option A will be right. Okay, now I'll explain you the question itself. What is the question saying, or how will you be able to form the recurrence relation for this? Okay, alright. So now what you have to do is I would try and form the recurrence relation when you do not have two consecutive ones. Do not have two consecutive ones. Okay, one ones. All right. So if my n is equal to 1, that means I have a one length string. Then I'll have 0 and 1. Correct? Both of them will be in my answer. Okay. Now I have length equal to 2. For length equal to 2, I'll have how many? 0 0 0 1 and 1 0. Okay. So what I want to say from here is in the previous guy, you can add as many zeros as possible. Okay, in the previous one on the left hand side add zeros and you'll get those cases, and then for the other part, if you have to add 1, then you have to make sure that your right hand side should be 0. Okay, it should not be 1. So similarly, let me write for n equal to 3. So I'm saying in the previous part, add zeros to the left. 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0. Yeah. Next is whenever your right side becomes 0, then only add 1. So you are doing 1 0 0 and 1 0 1. Yeah. All these other numbers where you will not have 1 1. Is this clear to all of you? Yes or no? Let's write for n equal to 4. So for n equal to 4, what will have is 0 0 0 0. Okay. And then 0 0 0 1. Then 0 0 1 0. And then 0 1 0 0. And nothing is copied, I hope. Yeah, and 0 1 0 1 added. Now one more thing that you'll do is wherever these zeros are there, you just add 1 1 0 0 0 and 1 0 0 1 and 1 0 1 0. If you see, nothing is being copied. Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? Yeah. So now see, I'll try and write the recurrence relation for it. Okay, I gave you the examples. Now I'll try and write the recurrence relation. Okay, so I'll just rub this upper part so that I can explain and parallelly write the recurrence relation. You know, for n equal to 1, this is 0, 1 only. Easy case. Alright. So now here, an is dependent what? On an minus 1, right? Let's say an dash. Okay. The reason I'm writing dash is because this I'm writing for when your strings does not contain 1, 1. Okay. That's why an complement I'm writing. Okay. That means you just add 0 to the previous one. Okay. And if you see, you're adding 1 to what all? You're adding 1 to these guys, na? Wherever we have zeros. Yeah. 1 to these guys only, na? These guys were derived from what? The previous one. So can I write this is equal to this plus an minus 2 dash? Is this point clear to you? Because this is very important. Alright. So I'm writing this an, I'm able to form with these guys plus these guys. This is like the Fibonacci series. Like the Fibonacci series. Okay. So this is the relationship I've got when 1 1 does not occur in the string. Okay. So if I want to write 1 1 occurs in the string, so can I say an dash is equal to 2 raised to power n minus an? An is the the number of strings of length n containing 1 1. Number of strings of n length containing 1 1. Clear to all? Because total strings, how many are there? These many, right? Total strings are 2 raised to power n. So if these many contain 1 1, these many will not contain 1 1. These are not containing 1 1. And these are what? Total length strings. Total strings of length n. Clear to all of you? Quickly tell me, clear? Similarly, I write an minus 1 dash is equal to 2 raised to power n minus 1 minus an minus 1 and an minus 2 dash as 2 raised to power n minus 2 minus an minus 2. Okay, so I'll use these values and substitute these values in the equation I had here. Okay, in this equation. So let me just try and substitute the values. So an dash was 2 raised to power n minus an. An minus 1 dash was 2 raised to power n minus 1 minus an minus 1 plus 2 raised to power n minus 2 minus an minus 2. Alright. So now when you try to solve this, so all the 2's and all I'll bring one side. So let me bring it on the LHS. 2n minus 2n minus 1 minus 2n minus 2 is equal to an minus 1 minus an minus 2. Okay, so this becomes what? 2, 2 raised to power n minus 2 I want to take common. So this becomes 2 square, which is 4, 2 minus 1. This is what an minus 1 minus an minus 2. So this becomes what? 4 minus 3 is 1. So finally you get 2 raised to power n minus 2 is equal to an minus an minus 1 minus an minus 2. So these two quantities, if you take on the RHS, LHS, you get what? An is equal to an minus 1 plus an minus 2 plus 2 raised to power n minus 2. Okay, this is what you get as the answer. Is this clear to everyone? This is how you will be able to derive the recurrence relation, but this is for understanding purpose. You will not use this method to solve the problem, okay? Because otherwise it will take a lot of time for you to complete the problem. I'll give you one moment. If you want to ask me any doubt on this, please ask. Otherwise, we'll move to the next one more problem we'll do today. Alright, so I hope this question was clear to all of you. So let's see this. I think this is the next one. Yeah, okay. So this is the next problem now. Try this problem. As well as asymptotic analysis and divide and conquer. I think we had done these way back, so if you want, you can try these again. Because I don't think, apart from you, anyone has done these. Let's just give these problems a try. Guys, have you completed this problem? Yes or no? Anyone who completed this problem? Okay, so let's discuss this problem. See, so what in this question is saying? This question is saying that x is equal to I cube summation. Sanjeev, what do you think the answer is for this question? Let's see how good your memory is. Yeah, okay, okay. So you can attempt these problems again if you think. Okay, these problems are done before. You can try and attempt these again. So this is what? This is sum of first cube natural numbers. Yeah. So sum of first n natural cube of first n natural numbers. Okay. So that sum we already know that it is n into n plus 1 by 2 whole square, right? So this I can write will be n power 4 plus something, right? N power 4 plus something. So can I write this at order of n power 4 or theta of n power 4? Yes. Is this clear to everyone? All right. So now if you compare first is theta of n power 4, correct. Okay. And theta of n power 4 is not equal to theta of n power 5. So that's why second is wrong. Remember, theta of n power 4 is not equal to theta of n power 5. Okay. If you go back and check the definition of theta notation, you will understand why this is not correct. Okay. Now, when I say order of n power 4, okay, this is equal to order of n power 5 because I am saying I am trying to loosely upper bound it. If I am saying something can be bounded by n power 4, that of course can be bounded by n power 5 also. Do I need to write the definition for order and all to explain this, or is this clear? Yeah, order means upper bound. So whenever I say that order, whatever function is given, that can be upper bounded with n power 4, of course the same function can be upper bounded by n power 5 also, correct? So third is also right. Okay. And lower bound is n cube. Yes, lower bound is n cube. This is also correct. The reason being, if I have n power 4 now, I can have a lower bound which can be n omega of n cube n power 4 omega of n square, because the lower limit on n power 4 can be anything, n cube, n square, n1, anything. Okay. So first is correct, third is correct, and fourth is correct. Hence option C is correct. Everyone understood this? Yes or no?